Coby White says what all Bulls fans were feeling after the team's 30-point loss to the Houston Rockets. But the question is this going to be more fluff, or will the Chicago Bulls actually try to start giving more effort to turn things around? We're talking about comments from Coby White, Billy Donovan, and Zach LaVine on this topic. We're also going to dive a little bit into the mailbag and preview tonight's game against the Detroit Pistons. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And last night's game sucked. Last night's game sucked on a lot of different levels. You saw a team that just was completely outclassed by a young, scrappy team that gives effort on both sides of the ball. The length of the Houston Rockets completely disrupted any type of offensive flow that the Bulls were attempting to get in. And I say attempt because they never got in anything that was any semblance or resemblance of a flow at all. The Bulls absolutely sucked last night. And there's no way around. There's no glazing it. There's no other way to talk about it. The Bulls were absolutely garbage last night, to the utmost, to the highest levels of garbage. They just were. And it was one of the most embarrassing efforts that I think we've seen from the Chicago Bulls in quite a while. It just is. And, it's good to hear that after the game, the players felt that way too, right? But we've heard this before, right? We were a team that had a players-only meeting or a players meeting 2 or 3 games into last season, and it really didn't do shit, right? So while, we're going to talk about some of the comments from the Bulls players and the coach and Billy Donovan, we got some things that we need to work on, but it all comes down to this. The way that this roster is built and constructed, I think that these things can only go so far. I think that these things can only improve by so much, but we're going to talk about it. So Coby White talks about the real issues with the Chicago Bulls when he says this. This was an embarrassment. This was a disservice to the fans and a disservice to a historic organizations. The fans don't deserve that. Coby also said that players were united in voicing how unacceptable their defensive effort was in the post-game locker room. The players have enough care factor to try and fix the issues, and that the issues go beyond scheme and down to basic effort and compete factor. So here's the thing, right? The scheme is one thing, and I don't want to make no mistake about it. Do the Bulls have the best scheme? No. And the thing that I always say when people blame 100% of coaching is that Billy Donovan isn't coaching this team to have turnovers. Billy Donovan isn't coaching this team to fall asleep and pick and roll defense. The team isn't coaching this team to not give effort to fight over screens, right? That's not what the coaching scheme is. The coaching scheme has definitely its shortcomings, right? The rotation issues are definitely a thing that's on Billy Donovan and this coaching staff. The taking players out when they're hot, sitting them when, all those type of things are schematic, but there's things that go deeper than just the scheme here. And, but you still also, one thing that I'll say, you could still hold coaching to the standard that they hold for this team and for these players. So while these players feel comfortable not giving the type of effort that's needed to compete in a basketball game on your home court. And Billy Donovan has said that as well, right? He talked about how the Houston Rockets play downhill and that they didn't have one guy to try to take a charge at all. The Chicago Bulls have, 2 or 3 charges on the season. Alex Caruso has 3 by himself alone. The Bulls right now are 1-5 on their home court. They've given up 135 points or more in 4 games out of 13 games so far this season, or 14 games, however many so far this season. The Bulls just sit in a place right now where, it's what we expected. And the defense is god-awful and trash. Now, in yesterday's episode, I talked a lot about, some of the Bulls fans that came into the season thinking that this team was going to be good enough, right? That this team was going to be good enough. Now, I will give some credit where credit's due. Some of the Bulls fans that thought, hey, this team actually may be a little bit better offensively or shooting the ball-wise, Haize, than you thought. And yeah, 3-point shooting-wise, we're much better than I thought. But here's the thing. Even with how low I was on the defensive potential of this team, 14 games into the season, they are worse than what I even imagined that they could be defensively. This team is god-awful defensively. And no, it's not just because of Josh Giddey. It's not just because of Josh Giddey. This is systematic. This is built into who your roster is. We are just not built to be a good defensive team. Ayo, Patrick Williams, and you got to give Zach. Zach has been locked in defensively most of this season, right? Especially for him. Like other than that, like this team is not a good defensive team. And then when you look at it, like when you also get out rebounded, when you have the turnovers that we have, the execution of this team just comes down to being absolute garbage. Also, like, so you can't have a roster that is flawed, extremely flawed. The Bulls roster is extremely flawed. You have a flawed roster, and then sometimes you can overcome some of that with effort. You're not giving effort. You don't have the best coach that is balancing your rotations or anything well, so coaching is also an issue, right? Skill is an issue for some of this time, and you don't use players to the proper skill. Like it's again, as I've said before, and I don't mean to keep harping back to the same thing, but it's still true, so I'm going to still say it. This Chicago Bulls offense is fun, cool. You got a fun offense. You're moving faster, but there's no substance to it. There's no substance to this offense. The offense basically comes down to, are you hot from three or not? Right? That's really what it comes down to. Now, when you are hot from three, things start looking better. The players are moving better because defense have to play you on that three-point line. So then your slashers, and when you do cut and get to the rim, it's even more impactful and effective. But the thing is that that's still not really something that you can rely on day in and day out. That's not really substance. That's luck. And so it's some skill too. I want to be clear there. That's a bit harsh, right? But it just comes down to the lack of substance really here being on this team is going to be something that affects them the whole rest of the way. And then the defense. And I love that Billy Donovan is being honest about this at least. He said this after the game. I thought because we struggled to shoot the ball after a period, it drained us. And this is one of those games where you have to find alternative ways to win because we certainly created a lot of really good looks. Also chipping in the defense is going to be a challenge. I've said that from the beginning of the year. The defense is a challenge, but the turnovers to me are just crazy. We've had 13 in the second half, such a clean first half. We start the third quarter with 4 straight and 3 straight turnovers. We're not giving us a chance, and this last quote was after the Cavs game. We're not giving ourselves a chance against a team playing as well as anyone in the league. You're not going to win like that. We've got guys open down the floor. We can't execute the pass. We've got to be able to take care of the ball better collectively. It's not one guy. It's all of us. And it is. This team is bad at a complete side of the game of basketball, right? And that's why when we could talk about offense all day long, even the Bulls offense, it's not like we're great offensively. Like, yeah, we're great for the Bulls, and the fact that the Bulls look more modern, we've been such an old school team for so long that I think it's easy to kind of get caught up and get in the weeds of, well, we're moving faster, we're getting up more threes, we're doing those things better. Yeah, we are doing those better. And all of those have still put us right in the middle of the pack offensively. Yeah, we're averaging 115 points per game. Great. That's 100% great. But we're at the bottom of the league defensively. We are the second worst team as far as points per game at giving up 123.7 points per game, only 0.2 better than the worst team defensively in the league in the Washington Wizards. That's what it's all gotten us for the Chicago Bulls. Yeah, so I'm glad that the three-point shooting percentage for the Bulls is middle of the pack, right? We started off higher, right? Now we're right around 15th at 36.7%. Now, one game can change that, especially when the Bulls shot as bad as what they were. We're taking the third most three-point attempts in the league. So there's that, right? And as far as three-point makes, we're in the top 5. So, there you go. Like we live and die by the three-pointer. But there's no advanced actions that we run. There's not a half-court set that we get into. And that's part of the problem here, right? When you look at the Bulls offensively, you have to have half-court sets still. You have to be able. Now, I've said it before. You can still run a quicker pace offense even when you have to run a more half-court offense, but you do that via coming off screens, coming off pin downs, moving without the ball, slashing a lot, which we have the players theoretically that should be able to do that, but we don't do it. Right now, we're just running. And when we're running, we're getting out fast. We're trying to get an open three-point shot. And if we can't do that, then yeah, we're trying to catch Coby on an ability to get to the rim, right? Zach LaVine ability to finish around the rim, both in layups, floaters, and dunks, right? We're getting Nikola Vucevic a lot more involved, and Vucevic's post-game has been really good this season. But overall, we don't have a system. That's the thing. I hope that the Bulls, coming into the season, I hope that the Bulls were going to play a quicker pace, but there was going to be a system. There is no system. The Bulls are out there just running and hoping that they catch an open shot. And it's becoming more and more evident as this season goes on and teams are adjusting. And that was always going to be the thing, right? When you don't have an actual scheme, not even a complex one, right? But when you don't have an actual scheme and actions that you can go to, just running and getting up and down the court is going to catch some teams off guard. And it's going to catch some teams off guard later in the season. But once teams, especially smart teams that have really good coaching, realize, hey, they're just really running. So if we just like hedge, if we just put up the pressure, and especially if you have some length as a team that you can get into and use for the Bulls to kind of disrupt what they're trying to do, you're going to completely throw them off. And so that's what we're seeing with the Bulls. The league has already adjusted via the look of it right now, has already adjusted to what the Bulls were doing. And they know now, hey, if we can get out and attack this team, we can get to the teeth. We gave up 80 points in the paint yesterday and still over 20 points off turnovers, even though our turnovers were down. That's not going to cut it. We won 2 out of our last 9 games. 2 out of the last 9 games. We've seen this story before. And I don't mean to be all doom and gloom about this team. This team still has talent. Like I said, I'm always going to say this team is going to get some fun wins over the course of the season. We're going to have those fun wins, and we're going to look at it and say, why aren't we doing this more often? And I'm giving you the answer now. I'm giving you the answer to the test. The reason why we can't do it more often is because we don't actually have a system. We're just running, and sometimes you can catch guys off. It's just like, you know what the Bulls are? The Bulls are the guys in fighting games, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Killer Instinct, whatever your fighting game of choice is. Whatever it is, the ones that just mash buttons. There are going to be times where those guys absolutely beat somebody, right? And they're like, damn, well, this guy's pretty good. But then when they get in that ring, when they get on that game, and they get against somebody who actually has a strategy, someone who actually sets up their moveset, someone who actually builds up their specials and then uses it against you at the time where you think you're gaining some momentum, that you're gonna get exposed very quickly on as a button masher. That's what this team is. This is a button mashing team in the fighting game. They just out there doing shit. And sometimes that shit is going to work out. Sometimes that shit is going to look good. And sometimes it's going to be convincing enough to look like it had a plan out there. But really, they just out there doing shit. And that comes down to coaching. That comes down to execution. That comes down to a lot. That's what this team is doing. They are the button mashers of the NBA. And listen, they're going to keep dry. I told you guys, the losing is going to get ugly. And I mean, the Bulls I hope at some point they string together 3 wins in a row. They could do it, right? I'm sure there's a stretch in the schedule where they can do it. But a combination of their button mashing offense comparative to somebody getting hot and whatever else, they're going to win 3 games in a row at some point in time. But the losses, I guarantee you, the losses are going to stack up a lot more than the wins, and we're only midway through November. We're not even done with the first full month of the season, and the Bulls have gotten figured out. So unless Billy Donovan and his coaching staff are going to go in and get into a bag that it doesn't really seem like they have more times than not, the fun part of the season is already over. It's already over. And you know what? And it's not that it's the end of the world either for the Bulls. Keeping the top 10 pick should, and I hope is still one of the goals of this team. And I said it in last night's post-game show. The thing that would make this AK and everything is I hope that this is a tactical tank. I hope that all this is a plan. That AK sitting in his office, sitting back and saying, this is all going to plan. This is all going to plan. We sold those season tickets. Jerry Reinsdorf can get off my back. Vooch and Zach are looking good. We're going to move them at the trade deadline, and we're on pace to keep our top 10 pick, and we're going to go out and get a guy that's going to help change the direction of this franchise. Notice I said help change, because it's not going to solely change the direction of this franchise. Let's hope that that's the case, because otherwise, anything less than that, this front office once again failed at their goal to put out a competitive product. And this is now the 4th year in a row that they've done it. So we'll see. And we'll see tonight as the Bulls take on the Detroit Pistons on the road in Detroit today. And this is going to be a difficult game for the Bulls, much like the Houston Rockets game. This is another scrappy team. They're 7-8 on the season as well. The Pistons average 109 points per game, which is towards the bottom of the league, but they're the 8th best defense in the league, right? And so this is going to be one of those games as well. The length, the scrappiness of this Detroit Pistons team is going to give the Bulls some fits potentially, right? It's going to be another battle of the boards. The Pistons and the Chicago Bulls are both some of the best rebounding teams in this league, and they both do it as a team. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins that battle on the boards. But if you're looking for a team to kick up the defensive intensity, That's the Detroit Pistons. They have a better chance to kick up the defensive intensity than what the Chicago Bulls do. Now, we've seen the Bulls do it in some games, right? We've seen it happen. And it's kind of those shorter spurts when they kind of, are playing with the lead. And so if the Bulls can get a lead early in this game, they can do some things here. But listen, the Bulls now are playing with an 8-point differential in the season. They give up 8 more points per game on average than what they score. So the defense has not really been something that the Bulls have been able to rely on realistically, but maybe that changes for this Bulls team today. Maybe this is a team that comes in here and wants to play scrappy, right? Maybe the loss last night wakes this team up and we come out and get a great effort in Detroit and we can get it done, get a win, get up out of there, and see something go in the win column. Because I tell you what, when you look at the rest of this week for the Bulls, you got Detroit today, you got Milwaukee on Wednesday, you got Atlanta on Friday, and then you got Memphis on Saturday. Now, those are some games. The Milwaukee game, the Bulls can win. The Atlanta game, we can win. We always play them close. But we can also lose. We've seen us lose some close games to the Atlanta Hawks as well. And so you don't want to be the team that the Milwaukee Bucks can wake up to. We haven't been able to be the streak stoppers. Let's not be the streak starters either, right? So hopefully this team can get a win. We'll be live tonight, pregame, halftime hangout, postgame shows, all live on the channel, so you guys can stay in tune with us for that. But otherwise, man, this is about to be a very interesting watch for the Chicago Bulls this season, and we'll see what it brings about. But let's go ahead. We had some overflow in the voicemails. I want to get into these voicemails. This first one's from my brother Corn. Let's go ahead and play that now.
What it don't do, King Drip, it's your brother Corn, man. Hey, man, I just got through watching that episode, man, about Josh Giddey, man. And, I was, me, I let them stroll down the comments and shit like that. Let me just say this, man. Josh Giddey, he is what he is. We knew he couldn't shoot, and we knew he couldn't play defense. We knew he was a good passer. We know he was, somewhat of a good IQ. Remember when I said I hope that he will take bits and pieces of the game of Lonzo, but Lonzo ain't playing, so that's another conversation for another day. But what got me, and I saw down the comment, which triggered me, which was funny, was your description of the center that matches best with Josh Giddey. All those things that you said. Oh, you need a defender. You need a guy that's good in space. And the last thing you said there that got me and put the biggest smile on my motherfucking face is when you say, this center needs a high defensive IQ. Now, who is that? What center that's in the NBA right now that is exactly like that? See, I seen the names and all that, but when I scrolled down the comments, one comment, whoever you is, shout out to you. He said the name. And you know the name. The man that we actually should have drafted. I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to stand on it. We should have drafted him over Montes Bazelis. Montes Bazelis can't play defense like him. Montes Bazelis ain't even getting no fucking time. So let's just be real on the situation. We should have drafted Zach motherfucking Edey. But we couldn't because Memphis was smarter and it was down there below. But people was happy about it. People was happy about it. Hey, let me say this to y'all motherfuckers now. How's Zach Edey looking, huh? Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. How my guy looking? Ain't he leading rookie of the year votes right now? How Montes doing? And shout out to him, but how he doing? Like I thought. Zach motherfucking Edey.
All right. See, this is where the Zach Edey glaze, and I love Corn. Y'all already know that's my brother. But Corn is somebody who really gets caught up in the weeds and the minutia of the moment and sometimes forgets things. When we talked about what type of big that we liked around Zach Edey, we said athletic, that gets up and runs up and down the court, that also plays that is smart defensively, which Zach Edey is smart defensively, but athleticism, no, right? And then let's stop glazing what Zach Edey has done so far this season. Let's just go over this. Defensive rebounding. Right now, defensive rebounding, Zach Edey is in the bottom 10% as far as percentage of rebounds that he gets when he's on the court. His rim defense is in the bottom 15th of the league. The bottom 15th of the league. I say we need a rim protecting big. You know what Zach Edey is not? He's not a rim protecting big, not yet at least. I think that timing, and I'm going to be fair in this. I do think the timing is going to come around for Zach Edey. He's shown some of that, but he's averaging 1 block per game right now, and the percentage of blocks that he gets when he's on the court is not really there. But he's also playing with a player like Jared Jackson Jr., which plays into that as well, right? So we gotta stop that. We gotta stop that, man. Overall, Zach Edey is he's better than I gave him credit for, and I'll say that. He also went to a team that has already a really good defensive big next to him that does cover up some of his things in pick and roll defense and things like that. Zach Edey's been better offensively than I expected. But this is a player that hasn't been able to play over 20 minutes. They keep him around 19 minutes per game, and we are trying to be an up and down running team. No, Zach Edey is not the guy that fixes the Josh Giddey problem. Now, if the different makeup of the team, sure, right? But overall right now, it leaves a lot to be desired, especially when you look at his size and things that he has. Zach Edey's good. He's been solid. I got to give him that credit. But in the framework of talking about what helps Josh Giddey's game the most, no, brother, that's not Zach Edey. Not if you're looking at it objectively. I know that you're in love with Zach Edey, and that's fine, right? But come on. We got to stop trying to cap on Zach Edey and try to make him fit into every other thing that you want to have a conversation about, because that loses what? The objectivity. That's just as bad as the Josh Giddey fans who say things like, oh, if Josh Giddey just played 35 minutes, he'd get a triple-double every game. Yeah, but that would also mean that he'd probably give up 45 points every game, right? And I don't think, and also here's the thing, and this isn't even against Zach Edey. This has nothing to do with being against Zach Edey, is that what Zach Edey is able to do on that Memphis team with having Ja Morant, who Ja Morant makes a big effort to make sure Zach Edey stays involved. I think the guards over there do that also, right? Which is really good. They actually have a scheme and a system down there. Do you trust Billy Donovan to do? Zach Edey would be on the end of the bench if he played under Billy Donovan. And that's not because of Zach Edey. That's because Billy Bubblegum Donovan is an idiot. So let's let Zach Edey stay in a place that appreciates him and actually is using him to his strengths. And let's see what that's going to bring for him in the future. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Todd.
Haize, what's going on, bro? This is Todd, man. It's been a minute, but I was inspired to give you a ring after your podcast about having a Josh Giddey problem. Now, we all know, everyone listening, that Acme is going to re-sign him. We know that. That's almost a given because of their idiocy. So how do we prepare for that? And this is back to my constant refrain. We must keep that pick. Specifically, we must get Khaman Maluach. As you said in your well done podcast about Giddey, he needs a rim protecting big behind him for when he becomes a cone, as he often does, and that is Khaman Maluach. They are around the same age. I believe Khaman will be 19 or 20 at the end of this year. Giddey will be 22, 23 maybe. I don't know if he turns 23, but he'll be 22 at least. Perfectly placed for that role as a rim defending, rim running big with soft hands, by the way, and an offensive game. We need him more than we need. I mean, obviously we want Cooper Flag, but we're not getting him. Ace Bailey, and the rest of the guards and the forwards, we need that big specifically. So for me, it's imperative that we keep the pick. I love the way we're playing and losing. We play a fun brand of basketball, and then we let go of the rope at the end of games. That's going to get us and keep us in that top 10, I believe, but we need to be targeting Khaman Maluach, as I've been saying for the entirety of my time calling in to you. So I actually think they're obviously going to sign Giddey. They wouldn't have traded him if they don't. They are so short-sighted. They're such kids in candy shops and bulls in china shops with their thinking that they don't have another plan. There is no other plan for them. It is give up whatever, don't get any more picks, and keep the player that they fall in love with and whatever. They have all these projects from Pat to Dalen to Giddey, and maybe 1% or 10% of them will turn out, but most of them won't. So here we are. But can we please get one player that is damn near surefire, and that is Khaman Maluach. So that's all I got. I love your thoughts. Talk soon.
Khaman Maluach. Here's the thing. Maluach, listen, he is a great prospect, especially for the Bulls, because they're probably not going to pick in the top. Like you said, Cooper Flag, especially if he's there. Khaman Maluach is, and this isn't just about the Giddey aspect of it. Like, he's just, when you look at his ability to stretch the floor that he's developing in, he's showing that he can develop that shot to the 3-point range. He's a 7-footer. He's quick. He's agile. He's mobile. He plays above the rim considerably. He can space the floor. He can shot block. Not to make him sound like a perfect prospect, but he may be the perfect prospect for the Bulls. And I would not be mad at all. I know everybody's getting caught up in the Cooper Flag weeds, and I understand that. He's a great prospect, and he is the prize of this draft. But Khaman Maluach, listen, this is a guy that I look at and I say, if he came to the Chicago Bulls at 7'2", 235 pounds, the physicality that he brings, I'm not mad at that at all. At all. So we'll see what comes along for that one. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.